Volume check 2.1, volume data 2.1. Let's put the Nextcloud on an Ubuntu server. I know I've done this on Synology. So let's do Ubuntu. And if you're a Synology user, this might be useful for you to watch just to see kind of the behind the scenes of how Docker works, especially on an actual Linux server where you get to dig in a command line a little bit. So if you're into this kind of thing, but you're mostly a Synology user, I would definitely recommend giving some of these videos a watch. So let's go to, we are on a site called linuxserver.io, not nextcloud.com. We're going to do the linuxserver.io method because this will be a lot easier for you. It's not going to require a reverse proxy. It's just, if you're just getting into this, I really recommend this is the way to install Nextcloud. We're going to click on Docs. Let's click on Docs and then Container Images, and we're going to scroll down to where it says Nextcloud. And now in the Nextcloud section, we are going to scroll down to a section that talks about using Docker Compose. So you do need Docker on here. I have a video on how to install Docker if you don't happen to have that on your Ubuntu server. So we're going to come down here to where it says Docker Compose, and we're going to copy this guy. And that is all that we need right now. So let's go back into our server. So I'm going to assume that you don't know too much about Linux. You're kind of unfamiliar. We're going to go from there. Right now, you are in a folder. You're in a tilde folder, which is short for your home folder. So you can imagine on your PC or Mac, maybe you have a user named Volume Data 21, and that user has their own folders for downloads, pictures, desktop, music, media, whatever. That's basically the folder that you're in. And if you type in ls, you can see what's in this folder. And in my case, the only folder that I have is a folder called app data, and you probably don't have any folders. This is where we want to be. If you're wondering if you're here, you can type in a command cd space tilde, and you'll be in your user home folder. And this is where I recommend you starting off. Eventually, you'll see other people using different folders to put their Docker applications in. I'm going to recommend this right now because it can help avoid a lot of permission issues in the future. So like the opt folder is a big one. If you type in cd opt, that will take you to the opt folder. That is a popular place to put an app data folder. I'm just going to stick with the home folder right now though. So what we're going to do in here is make folders. So if you don't have an app data folder, you're just going to type in mkdir space app data. And that is going to make an app data folder for you. I've already got one. You can see what's in here. To get into that folder, I'll just type in cd space app data. And I'm in. And I can type in ls and see what's in here. For you, there's probably nothing. For me, I got a Home Assistant folder. If I want to go back to the previous folder, I could type in cd space period. And that's just a shortcut for going outside of my folder by one. So I'll just type in cd app data to get back in there, and we're going to make another new directory, mkdir, called Nextcloud. There we go. I can type in ls, and I should see Nextcloud. I can also type in ll, and it will, I think that's short for long list. It's not on every flavor of Linux, but it is on a Linux server by default, or Ubuntu, whatever it is, by default. And you can see a couple of other info here. I know this, you might not be able to make this out, but this is sort of its read and write permissions and who owns it and what group owns it. So if you're seeing your username, that's a good sign. So let's go into the Nextcloud folder, cd Nextcloud, and I can see that I am currently, all my commands are going to apply into my home user folder, app data, Nextcloud. So we're going to type in a command nano. This is going to bring us into a text editor, and then we're going to type in compose.yml. I just learned that I could do this. I used to type in docker-compose.yaml. You can do that too, but I think you can just type in compose.yaml. Is that what they're doing here? Yes, they're doing, they don't even specify. Let's go back out here. So we're in a text editor right now. So if you try and go up and down, you can't go anywhere. We can write stuff out, and that is going to be, this is like writing a Word file. We're just going to paste in that Docker Compose text that we got before. And we are going to make a couple of changes. So for one, if you're not familiar with Docker Compose, think of it like, I'm going to oversimplify this. It's like a set of instructions on how to install a program, and it's installing them through Docker. So in this case, it's going to download an image called Nextcloud. It's going to name the container Nextcloud, and I could rename this to whatever I want. I could call this Home Assistant and really confuse myself, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it Nextcloud. Environments. So we've got PUID and PGID. This is just your user ID and your user's group. If you don't know what that is, that's okay. We're going to look at that in a second. TZ is short for time zone. You could just leave this as it is, but sometimes the time zone stuff can be pretty useful. I'm going to type in America/new_York, because that is a time zone that I'm in. Paths. So here we go. We're going to keep this simple. Config. I'm going to delete everything before the word config here, that first config, and I'm going to type in a period. And all that this is doing is whatever folder this text file, this .yaml file is in, it's going to look for a config folder. If it can't find one, it's going to make it. Same with data. I'm going to do that. Now, this data folder is where all your Nextcloud files are going to live. If you happen to know you want them to live somewhere else on your server outside of this app data folder, this would be the place to put that. Do not use this period, though. You're going to have to use the full link. But for right now, I'm going to assume that you're on the beginner side of Docker stuff, so we're just going to use period data. Ports 443. We're going to change this first one. So instead of 443, I am going to use port, I don't know, what's probably not used, 7070. That's probably not being used. We'll go over ports in a minute, but that is how you access your programs on a server. So we're going to access this through port 77, which basically means once we've got Nextcloud installed, I'm going to type in a web browser, I can type in the IP address of my server, :7070, and that should take me to Nextcloud. So that's all that means. This second port number, that is for Docker, and you don't have to worry about that. It's not going to conflict with anything if you have any worries about, oh, I think I have something with port 443. That's not what the second number is here for. All this information after the colon is what's going to run in the Docker container behind the scenes. This is more your forward-facing stuff on the left-hand side, so that's why we change it. So we don't change the data folder to the right here, and we don't change the config folder to the right here. We leave that as it is. Now I'm going to hit Control-X, and then that's to close out of here, and then I'm going to type in Y to save changes, and then it's going to ask me what name do I want, compose.yaml is what I want, and I'm going to click Enter. So I need to get an ID, and super simple. If you've done my Synology tutorials, I have to make a script, and it's kind of a thing in command line. ID, there you go. I am user ID 1000 and group ID 1003. So I'm going to make that change. I can actually just hit the up arrow and go back to my command that I use, which is nano space compose.yaml. Some people like to use Vim. That's their word editor of choice. It's probably a little more universal. I'm a nano guy, though. I started using it, and I refuse to change. So pgid, I'm going to change that to 1003. You'll just change it to whatever your GID was from before. And I'm going to do Control-X. I'll hit Y to save, and hit Enter. And there we go. That should be good, and that is set up, and we are now ready to start up our Docker container. So to do that, I'm going to, well, first I'm going to type in ls, and you can see that there's nothing in here except for that compose.yaml file. Now I'm going to type in docker space compose up space -d. -d means detached. If you forget this -d, it's going to run and you're going to see it in your command line. And what's going to happen is if you stop it in command line, and you do that by hitting Control-C, that means it's also going to bring it down. This -d will let it run in the background, though, so we're good there. And let's just hit Enter. And when we do that, it's going to pull all the files that it needs to run Nextcloud. If you don't know what linuxserver.io is, guess what, buddy? You're going to get pretty familiar with it if you're getting into the Docker world. It's really useful. They kind of make their own versions of these Docker containers for big programs, and Nextcloud is one of them. So they've got a really great reputation in the community, pretty good security as far as I know. Yeah, I can't think of anything to worry about with using a Docker, with using a linuxserver.io image. In a lot of cases, it actually makes it a lot more easy and convenient to install some of these programs than using the official one. In particular, Nextcloud can be a difficult install. One day I'll do that. One day I'll try and do the official one, but it's not very easy. So let's go back to our terminal. We're still pulling here. Once this is done, we should be able to pull up Nextcloud. All right, so we've got Nextcloud installed. All the pulls were complete and everything, so we can see what's running here, and that is, it's got a network up called Nextcloud_default. I cannot say. It's network Nextcloud. Those are two different words, Volume Data 21. And then container called Nextcloud. So check this out. If I type in docker ps, it's going to list all my containers that are up. I've got a Home Assistant. Don't worry about that. And then Nextcloud up here. So Nextcloud is up and running. I know it's not like the easiest way to look at this stuff, but it's up and running. And I can also see that it's running on port 77 locally and then 443 internally. And by internally, I mean in its own little Docker container, not internally on my Linux server or internally on my home network. It's just in its own place. Now, if I type in docker network ls, remember ls before? I think that just stands for list. We can see all of our Docker networks, and we can see that we have one called Nextcloud_default. So that is where Docker is. If you want to look up what Docker networks are, it's a very cool thing to know. But there we go. So that is what has pretty much happened behind the scene. You can also type in docker space stats and see how much RAM and CPU everything's taking up. So you can see it's not taking up very much right now. Anyways, that was a good time to do that because it was probably trying to get a couple things to run in the background. Let's access our server. So if you know the IP address of your server, you can type that in. Make sure you type in HTTP and not HTTPS. If you type in HTTPS, this is not going to work. Oh, no, I take that back. I'm sorry. You have to type in HTTPS. Do type in HTTPS. HTTP probably won't work. So I'm going to type in the name of my server, which is outpost31.local. That's probably going to work for you if you type in the name of your server. If not, go ahead and use the internal IP address. And then I'm going to type in :7070. And then you are going to get a warning that your connection isn't private and that it's a malicious actor, and they're going to take all of your information and all your bank account numbers, and they're going to sell it on the black market, and you are going to be homeless tomorrow. So I'm going to go to advanced configurations and continue. I can trust this because I'm the one that installed it. That's why I trust it. You can't trust it though because you just followed some stranger on YouTube. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. But here you go. You are on Nextcloud. So you can not log in because you need to install. Oh, is there a default Nextcloud user? So yeah, there is no default. You are just going to create it. So in this case, let's type in VD21 as my login, and then I typed in a really secure long password. Let's do a secure password. I'm not going to cheat you like that. We'll go to Bitwarden password generator. I'll click on the first link that I see and not even bother to see if it's right or not, and then I will regenerate this password 123 123 5, and I know that if I regenerate it 5 times, it's a secure password. Copy to clipboard, not copy to clipboard, and then I will paste that in, and I will have my Nextcloud password. And then all I have to do is click install, and I am good to go. Anyways, from here, yeah, we're good to go, and we can click install, and we will have our Nextcloud server going. So I'm just going to click install, and I will note, if you wanted to use a different type of database, this is where you do that, but it requires a little bit of Docker setup. Just a little heads up. So let's just click install and use MySQL. You probably won't need anything beyond MySQL unless you plan on having a lot of stuff on your Nextcloud server and a lot of users. And by a lot, I mean, I think that's like enterprise level kind of stuff, or maybe small business. Let's click install. I think it's a good idea for the first time you do this anyways to just be prepared to knock the server down and restart it, but just get a feel for it, get a feel for how things work, how to get a Docker container going, how to access it, and then just getting a feel for Nextcloud, because Nextcloud might not be the service that you're looking for, or it might be. But as you install it, you might also realize that the MySQL version of this is, or sorry, not MySQL, the SQLite version of this database is more than enough for you. And in that case, you keep your install easy, you've got everything going. You can also always migrate this to another Nextcloud install. So if for some reason you have too much stuff, too many users, you could create the server again later using a different type of database. All right, and you are good to go. You can install the recommended apps if you want. I'm just going to skip, and you are in Nextcloud. And there you go. That is how to install Nextcloud fairly easily on your Linux server. Now, when you're in Nextcloud, by the way, all of your data, we're in our Nextcloud folder. Let's type in ls. We can see that we now have a config folder and a data folder. And if I type in ll, I can see that my permissions worked because they're both owned by the user volume data 21 and the group volume data 21, or VD21 for both of those. So that's good. If I go into CD data and type in ls, I can see it's already populating with data. This is where all my stuff is going to land. If I start uploading photos and documents in here, this is the folder where all that information is going to be. So if I type in CD period, I'm back in the Nextcloud folder. I'll type in ls, CD data, ls. Sorry, I was just in there. I meant to type in cd config. If I'm in the cd config folder and I type in ls, I can see where more of the configuration files for Nextcloud are. You might need these, especially if you're using a reverse proxy. You might have to get into some of these folders. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. This is where you might need to get in and edit stuff. But if I type in cd period, Docker stats, check it out. Doesn't take up too much of my CPU or memory. And I'm just on a Raspberry Pi 4 right here, so nothing too crazy. Pretty easy install. Oh, and if you type in if I'm in Docker stats and I want to get out of Docker stats, I'm just going to type in Control-C, and that will get me out of there. So for anything like that that's a running process in Linux, if you're trying to get out of it, usually Control-C is going to be the way to get out of it. So hopefully you were able to install Docker and Nextcloud, not Docker. Hopefully you were able to install Nextcloud and Docker before that. Good luck to you.